my novel presentation, I decided to use the book The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. About the author, Fitzgerald was born September 24th in St. Paul, Minnesota. He died December 21st in Hollywood. F. Scott Fitzgerald was born Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald. He was the writer of The Lost Generation. He created and published over 20 literary works and was married to Zelda Sayer in 1920. The historical significance, the Roaring 1920s. The Great Gatsby was written in 1925. It was an era in American culture, also known as the Roaring '20s. It was described by its progressive industrialization and urbanization. It embraced more liberal social, cultural, political, and economic ideas. The cultural significance of the 1920s was that it embraced personal freedom and a greater ability to express it. The 1920s brought an evolution of arts, fashion, and music. Women became more liberated, and prohibition gave way to black markets and easy wealth, creating a new underground culture. The economics. The 1920s were a time period of great economic development and widespread prosperity. There was an increase in production of consumer goods and industries, as well as the opportunity for more factory jobs for urban living. Wealth in America, however, was extremely disproportionate. Classes were separated into three different social classes. There were the wealthy, which made up the minority of the population. There were the middle class and the poor class, which made up the majority of American population. One of the characters of the novel is Jay Gatsby. Jay Gatsby was a wealthy and ambitious character known for his extravagant parties, and he lived in the West Egg. He was from poor Middle Western farmers, and his name was James Gatz. He obtained his wealth through illegal activities in search for the American dream. He, in the book, was the epitome of the American dream. Nick Carraway played the narrator. He was from a wealthy family. He moves to New York to become a stockbroker. He lives in the West Egg next door to Gatsby. And he can be considered as a tolerant and open-minded character. He tries not to take sides or judge any of the characters in the novel. Daisy Buchanan, on the other hand, is the cousin of Nick. She is married to Tom Buchanan. She is originally from a wealthy family in Kentucky. She lives in the East Egg and can be described as a shallow and materialistic character. Some of the supporting characters of the novel are Jordan Baker, who is in a relationship with Nick. She is a wealthy tennis player, which Nick describes as incurably dishonest. Tom Buchanan is the husband of Daisy. He is an arrogant, retired football player who is from a wealthy family who lives in the East Egg. Myrtle Wilson, on the other hand, is the mistress of Tom, who is married to George Wilson. She lives in the Valley of Ashes and is considered to be part of the lower social class, or the poor. George Wilson, the husband of Myrtle Wilson, is a poor owner of a garage in the Valley of Ashes where he lives. The plot. The story takes place in New York. It begins when Nick moves to New York in search to become a bond man. He moves next door to the rich and mysterious Gatsby and is invited to one of Gatsby's parties. At one of Gatsby's parties, Gatsby requested of him to set up a meeting between Daisy and Gatsby. Nick sets up the meeting between Daisy and Gatsby, and the two, who have a romantic history, are reunited once again. The climax occurs when Gatsby and Daisy rekindle old flames, while Daisy is still married to Tom. Nick also discovers Tom's infidelity, his affair with Myrtle Wilson. The climax occurs when Tom becomes suspicious of the relationship between Gatsby and Daisy. On a hot summer day in New York, Gatsby and Tom have a standoff for Daisy's love, and Daisy confesses her allegiance to Tom. Daisy and Gatsby then leave the hotel in New York, and on the way back home, Myrtle gets ran over and killed by the car in which Daisy and Gatsby are driving. the following action. Nick learns that Gatsby did not kill Myrtle, and was covering for Daisy. Tom, out of anger and grief of his loss of his mistress Myrtle, tells the deranged, grief-stricken George, who was the husband of Myrtle, that Gatsby killed Myrtle. In conclusion, George kills Gatsby. Nick then holds a funeral for Gatsby in which only 2 people show up. He then ends his relationship with Jordan and moves back to the West in disgust to escape the moral decay he has witnessed in New York. One of the themes in The Great Gatsby is the American dream. The American dream is the opportunity for everyone to be able to work hard and become successful in anything they desire. The American dream is expressed in Gatsby's ability to obtain great wealth and move up in social status from being the poor boy of a poor Western family. Another theme also expressed in The Great Gatsby is the separation of social classes. The Great Gatsby shows a separation between old money, new money, and the poor, and how social classes affect the way people interact, and it is expressed by the interaction of the characters. Some of the characters from old money include Jordan Baker, Tom, Daisy, and Nick. The characters of new money include Gatsby, who through the American dream has acquired great wealth. The poor characters within the novel are Myrtle Wilson and George Wilson. Location also plays a role in The Great Gatsby. In the novel, the West Egg represents the new wealth class, while the East Egg represents the high social class with old money. New York represents the anything-goes nature of society. It is a stumping ground for business, pleasure, and the mixture of culture. The Valley of Ashes is the place where the poor live and is representative of the decay of American society in the American dream. One of the symbols in the novel are the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, which represent the idea that God watches everything. In the novel, George refers to the billboard and says that God knows what you've been doing, everything you've been doing. You may fool me, but you can't fool God. God fools everything. The green light is another symbol within The Great Gatsby. The green light represents Gatsby's ultimate aspiration to win Daisy's love. In the first chapter, Nick witnesses Gatsby standing at the end of the dock, his dock, reaching towards the green light, which is located at the end of Daisy's dock in the East Egg. Nick interprets this act later in the book as Gatsby reaching out towards Daisy, an object of infatuation that he would not be able to achieve. In my opinion, the book was a great read. It had universal and timeless themes such as the American dream and the separation of social classes, which is also prevalent in today's society. Fitzgerald also took use of literary devices such as imagery, symbolism, to capture the 1920s American society. Thank you. That's it. That's it.